Let's talk a little bit of Arsenal, shall we? Because we've sat in front of Mikel Arteta on numerous Fridays asking whether or not they're going to sign a striker. And here we are again, asking whether or not they're going to sign a striker. Liverpool, we hear from the papers in the Sun today, have joined the race to sign one of their targets, Viktor Gyokeres. What do you think Arsenal's thinking are here? And are they any closer to getting that striker in?
Yeah, I think it's still been quite quiet on that front just because there have been other priorities this week. Of course, I'm sure we'll talk about Brentford's Norgard soon, but also when you look at, I guess, the internal stuff they've been wanting to do ahead of next season, that's probably taken a front seat. With Gyokeres, I don't think that's moved on as much as it seemed from the reports in Portugal last week. So that's one where I think you're still waiting for, I guess, the dominoes to fall properly, and then everything kind of explodes into action. So yeah, I think with if Liverpool are to get involved, then that would obviously have to shift Arsenal into gear on that one.
What's also really interesting, and you mentioned Norgard there, is they're closing in on that signing effectively to replace Thomas Partey. What are your feelings on that? Because Partey's probably had one of the best years of his career at Arsenal, hasn't he? It's not really a like for like. It's not going to make the fans particularly happy, is it?
No, I've seen a lot of debate on social media over the last 24 hours. A lot of conflicting views. I think for me personally, I think it's just one that you need a competent midfielder in that position. Of course, he's coming in more as a backup, I'd say, than someone who you're expecting to start regularly because you have Martin Zubimendi coming for Real Sociedad. So for that role, I think you see the Jorginho signing as probably something similar, where he joined at the same age, 31 years old, and played a decent role in midfield for Arsenal. Didn't play loads of games, but was competent and helped when needed. So for that reason, I think it's a fine signing. It's not one that's gonna have fans kind of screaming with joy, but I think if and when injuries kick in, you'd rather have that player there than not have.
A lot of Arsenal fans sitting here or in the cars going to work, thinking, what is going on? Why can't we get one over the line, a big signing? It now looks as if they might lose out to Gyokeres.
Well, I don't think it's a case of lose out. Arsenal seem to want to do their business in July for this striker, and Andrea Berta is simultaneously advancing the deals for Benjamin Sesko and Viktor Gyokeres. And all indications are that actually Gyokeres would welcome a bid from Arsenal. So if they choose to move in the Sesko direction, I don't think it's necessarily defeat on Gyokeres. But Berta's a bit different to Edu. He's lining up both deals. He's advancing them to leverage them against each other. And Arsenal's perspective is clear. They either want Benjamin Sesko or Viktor Gyokeres for 70 million euros, and we have to wait and see which one they bid for. With Liverpool, Gyokeres has been discussed, as ironically has Benjamin Sesko as well. I still think that Liverpool will look at Hugo Ekitike. Frankfurt's price is 100 million. It may drop later in the window. And then you've got that dream target of Alexander Isak as well. So actually, Liverpool are not as advanced in their search yet in terms of club-to-club negotiations for their new number 9, and Arsenal have actually taken the Sesko and Gyokeres deals relatively far, and that's why I think Arsenal won't feel a hijack is that much of a worry. They've just got to make up their mind which one of those two they're going to go for.
See, I like the Isak, the sound of Isak. That's if he wants to leave Newcastle. It's a hard club to leave Newcastle. The fans are brilliant, but he's proven in the Premier League. I
don't think Newcastle will want to sell him either, Alan. But I want to ask you, Ben, because I see this Sesko deal as Arsenal want to get it done, but I can imagine Sesko's asking for wages which would put him on par with some of Arsenal's top earners. That seems to me like what could be slowing this down. And 13 goals last season in the Bundesliga. Should he be demanding that money?
Yeah, but wouldn't you want that money?
Of course, Arsenal are desperate.
If you've got a club like that after you, then obviously the rate is so highly. Well, that's the going rate you got to pay me.
Yeah, I think you're right. Although with Sesko, my understanding is that he wants to join Arsenal. So I don't actually think personal terms will be a problem. It's not to say they'll be low. He'll clearly be a top 10, if not a top 5 earner at the club. But the problem with Sesko is actually the fee with Leipzig. And because Shesko's release clause was linked to his performances last season and he hit a lot of individual goals, the money that it will take to trigger the clause is now around the 80 million euros mark. And again, Arsenal are saying the overall cost of that is too high. So you've got this sort of interesting scenario where Gyokeres, if Sporting agree to the pact with the player, and there's friction at the moment, but should he be allowed to leave for a number that he thinks was agreed a year ago, that's 70 million euros. It's good market value, but his is the wage that's very high. With Sesko, it's the other way around. The wage and terms are not expected to be a problem, but Arsenal don't want to pay that 80 million euros clause. They've got to find a way of making either deal economical, and that's why I think they're advancing both of them simultaneously until they make up their mind where there's value in the market.
Yeah. No, I wanted to ask you as well about any other big transfers, Ben, because there's a lot of clubs that are quiet. Is that because of PSR? I mean, I think it's Tuesday, isn't it, that clubs have to sort out their books. So maybe teams like Aston Villa, Newcastle will wait till after Tuesday to do their business.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Villa's PSR position, and almost the same for Bournemouth, is one to watch in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, Bournemouth have sold Dean Howson's. They've brought in a little bit more money. But let's wait and see whether Zabani to PSG, Antoine Semenyo, we know Spurs have made an approach, but they don't want to meet the valuation. There might be more outgoings from Bournemouth. Villa's a really interesting one. There is also, by the way, a near-miss period. So it's not a hard deadline of the end of the month. If you show that you were facilitating an exit now, if it bleeds into July, you can still put it on this year's financial books. But I think Villa need an outgoing. They'd love to sell Jacob Ramsey to Saudi Arabia. Neom FC have inquired, but that deal doesn't look close. You've got a lot of speculation about Emi Martinez, but if Manchester United move, they first have to tell Andre Onana he's not the number one.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of interest in a player, for example, like Morgan Rogers, but he's untouchable in Villa's mind. I think you're right to say no chance there. So this is probably slowing things down. And we've not seen the same kind of mirrored or shadow deals that we saw 12 months ago, where two clubs, instead of doing a swap deal, are doing two separate deals. And by doing that, it means that the one you sell, you put immediately on the books, and then the one you buy, you amortize, so it works both ways. And I think that has led to some stagnation in the market.
Ben, what about after yesterday, Harvey Elliott? Where does his future lie now?
Yeah, it's a great question. He's obviously added maybe a bit of value by the fact that he scored a brace in that semi-final. You've got some Premier League interest from Brighton. I'm also told that West Ham are considering both Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall and Harvey Elliott, and Fulham have made an inquiry as well. And then Leverkusen was always an interesting one, because the feeling was when the Florian Wirtz deal happened, Harvey Elliott was one name discussed, but they've gone in the direction of Jarrell Quansah. And my understanding is that Leverkusen have ended their interest, but Leipzig are another club to watch as well. And Fiorentina in Italy have also made an inquiry. So plenty of interest. And I think at the right number, Liverpool might be prepared to sell. And then with Darwin Núñez, it's a similar story. Napoli are leading that race. The player wants Napoli, but Liverpool are very firm here. They rejected a 70 million euros offer from Al Nassr in January. If they are to sell him, which is the expectation, they need a similar number. Napoli at the moment are talking like 50 million might do the job. My understanding remains, yes, Núñez wants Napoli, Napoli want Núñez, but they're going to have to add another 20 million to that number. Otherwise, Liverpool are not going to accept the offer.
Ben, nice one. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
Ben
guys.
Jacobs there. What about Núñez to Arsenal? You know, we're talking to all these players. Listen, he has scored bundles of goals in the past, you know.
Yeah, but I just think his record at Liverpool, I mean, the chances he misses out. I mean, at Benfica, he done very well. But Arsenal needs someone who's guaranteed them goals.
But this fella works his socks off, Gab.
Who? Núñez?
Yeah.
I know, but Gabriel Jesus works hard but can't get the ball in the back of the net. They need someone in around that 6-yard box, Alan, and just get the ball in the back of the net, because they've got Martinelli, they've got Saka, they've got Rice and Odegaard in the number 8 positions. They need a clinical striker. But I was going to ask you, I want to ask if we can get someone to talk about it. There was talk yesterday that Aston Villa might be selling to create funds for PSR. stadium change. Could be the Adidas Villa Park Stadium, whatever they're going to call it, to raise money